But he has to mention his Broadway show. That's the only caveat.
It's so neat. Hello, Yavapai. Really? You've been fed and everything? That's all you can do? Hello, Yavapai. There you go. There you go. For those who do not know me, I am Mark Robert Gordon. I'm getting feedback. I'm still getting feedback. I'm going to stay right here. I am Mark Robert Gordon. I'm a candidate for Secretary of State. I'm an Arizona native. Wow, am I hearing feedback? Wow. Do you hear it? Am I too loud? Yeah, I'm hearing it really viciously. Hello? Much better. Much better. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. Hello. I am Mark Robert Gordon, candidate for Secretary of State, Arizona native, live in Phoenix. I have been working in election protection and voting rights around the country for 26 years. The last time I was here, I was not a candidate. I looked like a human being back then. This is what happens after you're a candidate. You don't sleep, you don't eat well. It's what happens. When I was here, I spoke about election protection for about 45 minutes, an hour. It was a good lecture. Hey, don't sound bored already, Jimmy. No, gave a lecture. Those who know my background, I have been fighting for voting rights around the country for over a quarter century, making sure that the Voting Rights Act is complied with, making sure that the right to vote is accessible for all, making sure that barriers are brought down, making sure that the best systems are used, making sure that votes are secure, that everything is run in a fair, efficient, and proper manner. In 26 years of doing this work around the country, I have never seen an election office anywhere commit as many voting rights violations as has your chief elections official, your Secretary of State, Michelle Reagan. This is the office that approved of plans that led to a 6-hour line to vote in Maricopa County. 5-hour lines in sparsely populated Cochise County, 2-hour lines in Yuma County. And you know who she blamed for that? You. She blamed voter confusion for 6-hour lines in Maricopa County. The only thing I'm confused about is why she's Secretary of State. This is the same chief elections official that's supposed to be protecting your rights that failed to send out 200,000 election pamphlets to your fellow citizens to let them know where to go to vote, when to vote, what is on the ballot for 2 hotly contested propositions. Voting rights failures. 30,000 of your fellow citizens purged from voting rolls simply because their last name sounded similar to names out of state without proof of it being the same person. The wrong dates for elections published on the Secretary's own website twice, left up for multiple days after being told of the issue. The wrong number of signatures required to get on the ballot published on the Secretary's own website. And as you may have heard, and I heard there may be some questions, as you may have heard, the same thing when we're talking about signatures. This cycle, when people went to file, multiple candidates had inaccurate tallies of their signatures when they went to file for the candidacy. Totals ranging from 4 signatures to 1,218. Unfortunately, mine was on the higher end of that. We have 209 sheets that we presented that somehow went missing, that we have copies of. We presented to them that night, told them to find, and they did not find it. That's why we have a tally that's barely at the minimum to file for this office. But we have proven and have documentary evidence of what exists, what we filed, and this is the office that's supposed to be protecting everybody. But it's not just us, 500 candidates. The point is, this is incredible, egregious behavior with regard to voting rights. Careless efforts with regard to carrying your vote and treating documents the way that they're supposed to be treated. Even the Republican Attorney General Mark Brnovich said that her office broke the law with regard to those 200,000 election pamphlets. That's a Republican, no friend of ours. Said that her office broke the law when her office was due to protect your rights. She needs to go. Her political cronies need to be tossed out of that office in November, and we're going to do it. This has now become personal.
It's become personal. I have been sued this week by someone trying to get me off the ballot because of that talent. And there is documentary evidence to the contrary. So let me say this. People may have heard some of the other news about our campaign recently. We had petitions stolen from a political office while we were running. Somebody walked in to a political office, took petitions that were signed for us, stole them. We thought maybe it was somebody that was trying to turn them into us. Because, someone thinking we can get it up to Phoenix quicker, they need the petitions there. 2 weeks later, no, and the facility admitted that somebody unrelated to the campaign took them, was given them, and they're gone. We had another petition of ours with a signature on it, appear on a parody site of me online, and of my campaign online, with a signature on it, and defaced online. That petition was at the state party headquarters, somebody walked in. Petitions are very serious documents. It's about someone's democratic voice. Someone chose to support someone to run for office. And I don't care if it's one person or 1,218 people. It's someone's voice. And it needs to be heard, honored, and respected. This should not be something that we should be trifling with. That the Secretary of State was so careless, which is par for the course for this office, because they don't care enough to have transparent systems to protect petitions and mark the way that have you count them when you go in to turn them in and have it transparent to you where it's visible the whole time when you're there. That's abhorrent to me. That's horrible treatment of someone's voice, democratic voice. If it happened to me, well, it couldn't have happened to a nicer election guy. And I'm going to stand up for this. And I'm going to stand up against this attack on our democracy, whether it's carelessness or someone that's stealing. Because they are stealing your voice. They are messing and being careless with your voice. This race has never been about me. It truly hasn't. I know politicians, like offices, and there's an opening here because Michelle Reagan has been so awful. Whether intentionally or carelessly, she's been such an awful Secretary of State. The worst I've seen in 26 years of doing this business. And she's appointed cronies that do not belong to be in that office. She's the head, all lobbyists have to register with that office. And to have as your chief of staff a lobbyist? Come on. She needs to go. We're going to get her out. But this fight is not about me. It's about you and your vote. That means your voice when it's on a petition. That means your voice when it goes into the ballot box. That means whatever. This is what I've been doing for 26 years. Don't you remember when I came up here before? I described my dad. He was a World War II, disabled World War II veteran. Had trouble voting sometimes when he got into the 1980s. In Arizona, I remember, we used to encourage helping people vote. And so when my dad couldn't make it out, in those days we didn't have the PEVL, the permanent early voting list. Absentee voting was not that common. Instead, we would encourage people to vote. We did everything we could to help people vote. People used to come to the house to help my dad vote. Just needed a notarized slip that said this was your vote. Today's Arizona, it is a felony for somebody to come to your house and take your signed sealed ballot to a mailbox. That's not protecting your vote. That's not about you and your vote and your democratic voice. It's about certain politicians wanting to stay in office. This is what I've been fighting. And to think that your chief elections official is the one who championed that bill and then went before CPAC, right before becoming Secretary of State, the Conservative Political Action Committee, and said that with this bill and this law, we prevented one person from illegally casting 1,500 votes. When what she really did, in a law that has now been upheld by a court, and it's going to keep going up the chain of appeals, plus nothing to sneeze at. What she did was not prevent one person from illegally casting 1,500 votes. She and the people behind that prevented 1,500 legitimate votes, like my father's, from being cast when they needed help. You need a Secretary of State that knows about this ahead of time, that doesn't have to wait for reactions, that can come out swinging from the beginning to protect your vote. That's what I've been doing for 26 years. We knew when the plan came out. As the Maricopa County Democratic Party's election integrity director for 5 years, we at the county party, and we in my committee, knew from experience, because we have election protection officials, knew from experience that the plan that was approved by the legislature first, that went to the County Board of Supervisors in Maricopa County, went to the former county recorder to reduce polling sites in Maricopa County, the 4th most populous county in the country, from 205 polling sites to 60, was going to lead to those 6-hour lines. We knew ahead of time which Voting Rights Act provisions that those violated. We knew ahead of time which laws that those violated. You see, I'm a little passionate, you may be able to tell that. I was speaking like this then, before that primary election, the March 2016 presidential preference election. That's what you need as your Secretary of State. Someone that can see the problem before it happens from experience and from knowledge. That wasn't the voice that you heard from the governor's office, from the Secretary of State's office, from leadership of both parties, to be fair, in the legislature, from the county supervisors, nor the county recorder in Maricopa County. You heard that voice from experience. That's what I'm bringing to the table. And as I just said a little bit earlier, this is now personal with Michelle Reagan's office and with Eric Spencer. And anyone of either party that gets in the way of the people's voice being heard is really not in it for it to be about you and your vote. It's about politicians. That's not what this office should be about, and it's not what we need right now. That's not what we need after coming off of this experience. So I know people have seen news reports, and there's a lot in the news about me and the situation with the Secretary of State. I'm not shy about talking about this. I welcome the challenge of taking on the Secretary of State. She brought on this fight, her office. I don't think that it was deliberate. I think it was just negligence. But to lose 209 petitions for someone and expect them to go away, and it happens to be a possible opponent in a general election, that's a problem. And I am not going to be silent about that. And anybody who tries to silence me, again, is not in this for you or your vote. This office is about unifying the state. That's how it was when we had Rose Wofford, who I grew up under, as our Secretary of State. Everybody loved Rose, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. You didn't even know her political party. She was there to serve everyone. That should be your Secretary of State. I'll get the hairdo if I need to. You need a Secretary of State that's there to protect your voice in the election box. You need a Secretary of State who serves the other functions of that office for everyone, which is the chief librarian, among other things, chief librarian and archivist. I don't know if I'm being timed or if that's a question. So I think it's a question. Or both. Give me one more minute if that's not. It's chief librarian and archivist. When you go outside the state's borders and say you're from Arizona, they say, ooh, it's a dry heat, huh? First off. Then they'll say, ooh, Arizona. They say that because of our politics, the scandals, the race baiting, the people who want to separate beautiful Arizonans from beautiful Arizonans. The chief librarian and archivist, the Secretary of State, should be the unifying force, not just for elections, but to help us feel good about being Arizonans again. To point out points of pride throughout the state, all 15 counties, not just Maricopa, not just Pinal and Pima, all 15 counties. There's beautiful history, culture, diversity that needs to be honored and respected. And the one office that's supposed to be apolitical, that's supposed to be serving everyone, is the Secretary of State's office. this should not be used as a stepping stone to governor like politicians have used it. This should not be used as an opportunity just because there's an opening or because Michelle Reagan makes it a vulnerable office and there might be an opening there. It's not about that. It's about you and your vote. And this office, I know we've had governors we've had governor deaths, we've had resignations, we've had impeachments in this state. 5 of the last 9 secretaries of state have become governor. That's not why I've been running. I've been running because I want to do this job, and it calls for someone with experience at this time. In elections, in historic preservation, in culture. Tony mentioned that I have New York theater credits and some opera credit. So somebody that thinks about these things and has experience in these things, that's what's going to unite Arizona. So remember that as you're reading these news reports, as you're reading what's going on, remember why it is that I'm running. I've been running because it's about you and your vote. I thank you for having me here. I'm happy to take a few questions. Thank you. Yes, sir.
When you become our next Secretary of State, realize you're one heartbeat away from being the next governor of Arizona. Are you prepared to be our governor?
So the question was something that I just alluded to, about acceding to the governorship. I don't think anybody should ever run for any office because they want a different office. I think you should want to be the best person at the office that you're running for, in the office that you're holding, in the office that you're doing. It's a job interview. Who is best qualified to be your Secretary of State? That's the question that should be on the table right now. Now, I think I've talked about my experience, 26 years in election protection. I've talked about my experience in the history and culture. This is who I am. This is what I do. Honestly humbly, I don't think you've had a better fit for that role. Terry Goddard 4 years ago is a great public servant. This happens to be my specialty. This is my specialization. And at this time, I don't think there's anybody that matches up for this on either side of the aisle. That said, if the worst happens, and I'm not looking to become governor, it's not a good job I'm wanting to do at all. Rose Mofford didn't want it either. But I went to public schools, in the inner city public schools in Phoenix. My dad was a disabled World War II veteran. My mom was a public school teacher. I ended up graduating from Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs, Columbia Law School, Harvard University Kennedy School of Government, all on scholarship, have taught leaders around the country, have been involved in politics for 33 years since I was a kid here. I knew to get involved. I was on Carolyn Warner's campaign staff when I was a kid in the 80s when she ran for governor. Mo Udall's staff. First as an intern, then a researcher, then a joke writer for some reason. I helped Al Gore when he ran for president, both in 1988 and in 2000. Really, if he had only been seated as president in 2000. I've been around. I'm old. I'm older than I look. I've been around, but I have the experience necessary because there's a reason why government officials and politicians and candidates and not-for-profit organizations have called on me for advice for the years. I have a law office in D.C. There's a reason why they called me to do election protection in Georgia, and I got police to stand down from blocking the doorway, armed officers of the police. Armed police officers standing in the doorway of every African-American precinct in DeKalb County. There's a reason. That's experience that you bring to the office in any job. And there's a reason that I have this type of experience. So yes, I'm prepared if that should happen, but I'm not running for governor, I'm running for Secretary of State. Any other questions? Yes?
Tell us your name again.
What? The name that I was born with, and yours are the name people are calling me on the street, because that's how even my mother now. Mark Robert Gordon. You can go to markrobertgordon.com. You can donate at markrobertgordon.com. We're going to need it for this battle that we have with people that are trying to keep us off the ballot and silence your voice. We need your dollars right now to support us. markrobertgordon.com. Thank you so much for having me.